This is my video 3 on formative assessment and what I think about it, what surprised me, and what I would use in my classroom in regards to formative assessment. I'm kind of reflecting on my video 2 about teaching my lesson. When I was teaching my lesson, I was trying to incorporate formative assessment in the small amount of time that I had, because 10 minutes is it's not very long for like teaching a lesson and for getting assessment, but you can do it. So my student Kaylee, I tried to question her on some things, like just I used questioning just by verbally questioning her, like, oh, how do you, I see what you did, like, or does anybody know, like, students in the classroom, does anyone know what two positive impacts of the Nisqually Wildlife Refuge are? And she was able to answer, and just I did some questions in my slideshow, a multiple choice and then a fill in the blank, and I used those from my other homework because my targets matched pretty well and I felt pretty good about those questions I created, and so I used those in my slideshow, and I just had one of them I had them verbally answer and the other one I had them written answer, just to provide a little bit of differentiation, and also so that they could use the written one as a study guide to help complete their little brochure that they had. But my graphic organizer, I mean, I could see a brochure kind of being like a graphic organizer. It presents like a lot of information in a small amount of, like, in a small foldable. So graphic organizers, yeah, they come in a variety of different ways. So I tried to use that. So that was another form of formative assessment I used. We kind of had a discussion. We had a mini discussion. We talked about I tried to interact with my students about things that we saw at the wildlife refuge, things that they remember, different things that they see in every day. Like, I really tried to make it more of like some authentic learning so that students could relate to the assignment that I gave them. So I think that that's really important. I think that teachers should like relate some authentic learning so that it's easier for them to have students relate to what's going on. So that was something that I did. What surprised me about formative assessment, I think that what surprised me is it's harder than you think to use it in the classroom all the time. I mean, with one student I had right there, I mean, in my video too, it was pretty easy for me to ask questions and get responses and kind of see that, because I mean, she was one student, it's one person. But when I like go to my practicum and I have small groups and everything, I mean, I try to ask questions, I try to question them a lot, especially when I'm reading with students. So if I'm reading with a student and we are reading a book and it has a word like that they don't understand, I will usually give them a definition, or I'll ask them, do you know what this means? And if they say no, I'll give them a definition, but if they do, I want them to give me like a definition in their own words. And so, or I'll try to explain what different things mean. So I try to use that a lot in my small reading. But besides questioning and like graphic organizers, I think you can use them all really well for formative assessment. But I think it would be really hard with a lot of students. Like, if you're having like 25 to 30 students in a classroom, I mean, that's a fairly large classroom, but if you have that many students, it's hard to individually ask each student a question. If you're asking the class a question, you usually get about probably 7 to like, I don't know, around probably 12 people participating every time. Or like, for instance, like younger students, they'll probably raise their hands before you even have the whole question, like, before you even talk about the whole question. Like, you could ask them, do you guys know if, and then somebody will raise their hand and you're like, I haven't even finished. So I mean, that's pretty common. I see that a lot. So I mean, I think it would be hard. So that's, I guess, what surprised me about formative assessment. Well, if I was in my classroom, being in a classroom, I think I would try to use formative assessment a lot by doing some discussions. I really like when students interact with one another. I think that it's good for students to talk, get all their, like, if they have something on their mind, they can get it out and talk about it. I saw this happen when at my last practicum class last week. She showed a video, and then after, it was an informational video on bats. And after she showed the video, she gave students two minutes to discuss with their elbow partner what they found interesting about bats, what they liked about the video, what they didn't like about the video. And it was cool because, I mean, they got really excited. They're young. They got really excited about the video, and they got really excited about the video, but they just, you know, they had so much excitement, they just wanted to tell the teacher, like, personal stories all the time. They wanted to tell, like, the teacher, like, oh my gosh, that was so cool. So it was cool that she did that, and she told me that, you know, it really helps them, like, get it out of their system and stuff. And so and that's good for classroom management too. So I would probably use that as a formative assessment. I really also like graphic organizers, like those organizers that we are working on sometimes in writing. We call them wonder books, and they're just a good way to put a bunch of information in a really cool, interesting way. This is cool for students because it's really interactive. It also is good for them to, you know, if you want to incorporate arts in the classroom. So I like the use of graphic organizers, especially because of the differentiation that they include in them. So it's really important. Something else that I think that I would use in the classroom would be, I think I would occasionally use quizzes, only if, I mean, like, if I absolutely needed to use them for, like, math or for, other, like, ways that, I mean, other subjects I can't really get around not using quizzes, but I would actually like to not use quizzes as often. I'd really like to assess students individually in different ways. I mean, I know that there are a lot of standards and there's a lot of like things that you have to do, assessment that you have to provide and stuff, but I would like to assess students individually in their own ways so that I know, like, if they're understanding a concept, because I don't think that one form of assessment is going to work for every single student. So, well, I mean, I would like to change it up a little bit, and I also think that it's important that you provide, that a teacher provides assessment often. Like, and I always think that people think of assessments as tests, and like, you know, like, or state tests, like the WASL or the MSP, like people, like that's how they see like assessments, and like parents, that's how they see assessments. But it's so much more than that, and especially like formative assessment and things are things you can do every single day in the classroom, and you can do them fairly quickly. And sometimes, I mean, it's just a show of hands, like every once in a while, if you had to, like, you know, put your thumb up if you understand this. So that's something that I would use in the classroom, and I just really would like to check for understanding as much as I could so that I know, you know, we can move on from this subject, we can move on from this point, and everyone understands it, or I can see like who doesn't understand it and if they're struggling, and observing them by their body language too. Like when students get really frustrated with something, you will know, like, you know, they might not pay attention, or they might put their pencil down and put their head down in their desk. So there's a lot of different things that I would use in the classroom when it comes to assessment. I would, like I had said, I'd like to assess the students often because I think it's important to provide a lot of data, especially for your principal, for parents, for conferences, for the student. I mean, you want to see how well a student progresses. So, I mean, it's important if you have the data to be like, oh, well, 1 month ago, look, you were here, and now this month, you're here. So, I mean, I think students really need to know how well they're progressing, or I mean, like, even if they're not, I mean, they don't need to know if they're not doing well, but I mean, I think a visual, like showing them the data and showing information, like this is, you know, where you are, and this is where you know, I would like you to be, or this is your way above where I'd like you to be. I think that it's really encouraging for students to keep on with their motivation and things like that. So it's good for parents too, because I think parents like to know, like, well, you know, why is my student doing this, or like what evidence do you have that they're not doing well? Because I mean, sometimes parents see things completely different. So I think it's just really important to provide that for yourself and for, I mean, so you can look back on and reflect before you're teaching. And there's a lot of things in formative assessment I find really important, and I think assessment is really important, and using it in a variety of ways is really powerful for teachers to do. So that is my video on what I would do, what surprised me about formative assessment, and how I'd use it in the classroom.